all have a spark, a light, a purpose. And if we are not using it for good, it is a lost ripple in the world, and that is a disservice to all of us.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to the show. And today I want to start with a little bit of story time. You guys know how I love telling stories. And today the story is really about a slip up on my part. Something happened and I reacted to it. Nowadays, you know, politics, people choose sides. The people are forcing you to choose sides. You're constantly hearing from two different sides all the time. And I made a comment, a stupid comment about politics, just threw it out there. And my guest today could have been, because we come from completely different backgrounds. She could have taken it and she could have been offended and she could have said, I'm not talking to this guy, he's evil, he's the enemy, he's the opposite side. But instead, she showed how brilliant and how amazing she is by saying, let's talk. Let's get together, let's communicate, because it doesn't happen a lot these days. And so just a slip of the tongue by me, just kind of a flippant comment, which could have caused a huge riff, which is what happens all the time these days. But instead, my guest, Stef Ziev today, heard me and literally heard me and listened and said, let's talk about this. Great day, everyone. I'm Mike Pawlawski, former world champion quarterback, serial entrepreneur, and award-winning TV producer and host. I've lived a life dedicated to mastery through performance and mindset integration. Each week, I'll bring you the insights, strategies, and stories from some of the world's top performers to help you unlock your greatness. Whether you're an athlete aiming for the top or an executive driving your team to victory, this is where you learn how to train your greatness to become an everyday great. Now let's get after it. We found that we had so much more in common than we do that sets us apart. And I just think it's a great message for right now. So Steph, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love having you here today.
Oh my goodness. I'm so moved by what you just shared. I mean, it really is extraordinary. And I thank you too. And thank you for inviting me. And thank you for being my friend. And thank you for just being you in the world. I adore you, and I'm really, I already have chills, so I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Well, thank you so much. You guys can see why I love having Steph on here. She just is a beacon of positivity, but she has really fantastic lessons and stories for you. And her book, you can see in the background there, The Choice is Yours, is one of my recent favorites. I absolutely love the book, Steph, and so I want you to tell me about the book. I love the way you open the book, by the way. So if you don't mind telling that story, I would love to hear that story.
Am I allowed to say the title of that introduction?
Yes.
Oh, I am. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I do that, I do want to say, like, you know, the book obviously is something that I think the title, we say all the time, the choice is yours, the choice is yours, the choice is yours. But I don't know that we ever really think about what that means. And that was my intention in writing the book, was to kind of bring a higher level of awareness to that statement so that people can actually make their choices more conscious. And to the story, you know, to the point of the story that you just told, I think that both of us made conscious choices to lean in and call each other in versus call each other out, right? Like when I responded to you, I was very, very conscious of my choice to show up in a very loving way to do so. My intent was not to call you out or attack or make you bad or wrong, but was to, you know, invite and connect and engage and stay leaned in, right? And that was a very, very, very conscious choice. So, and I think that is something that I did not make when I had the experience that led me to write the introduction to my book, which is called Fuck You Firewalk. So that story is, let's see, it is about the time that I walked on fire at a Tony Robbins event. The thing that led me to that was that after, you know, I worked in television for many years. I was a television executive. And then when I made the choice, it's debatable whether it was a really conscious choice or a reactive choice to leave and start my coaching practice. I failed 3 years after I made that choice. And so I was at a loss. And one day I had the television on and I was watching QVC of all things, and Tony Robbins was on. And the long story short is I bought the hope. I bought all the programs. I bought with all the programs came the Unleash the Power Within. And when I got to that event, I was really at a very low point. And I was already unconsciously buying into the fact that only Tony can help me, right? And if I don't do this fire walk, which is literally the act of walking on hot coals, walking on fire, then something bad was going to happen. So I was wrapped up in what I would call a level 1 story, which is a story that totally sucks my joy, sucks my power, sucks my confidence. It sucks. And I ultimately, despite every bone in my body that did not want to do this, and there were many things that led me, that I was trying to get out of it, not the least of which was the promise that the people standing at the base of the firewalk were never going to let me cross unless, if I was not, quote, in state, which is to say a certain state of mind. So I'm standing there yelling, I am not in state. And they are like, go. And suddenly something, I don't know if it was the perfect child in me or whatever it was, I booked across that burning bed of rocks, like the Energizer Bunny. And at the end of it, I was like, oh my God, my feet are burning. My feet are burning. My feet are burning. I thought my feet were going to look like Asabuco falling off of the bone. It was like the most traumatic experience. And when I looked, my feet were actually very smooth and totally fine. But that experience woke me up to how often I give my power away. I do not make conscious choices. I make them based on other people's expectations, wants, and needs of me, and not really checking in with myself. And that was kind of my own, I like to say, I'm a Jewish girl, but I had my little come to Jesus moment.
I love that. That was fantastic. I absolutely love that story. When I opened up and knowing you, but when I started reading your book and I read that story, I was like, oh, this is so perfectly you. And so it's such a fantastic story. It's such a great lesson inside of it as well. Only you can tell you who you are and what you do, right? You have the choice of that, which is you tell it so eloquently in the book. And it gets back to our conversation too, right? Like as a former athlete, I love team. I love being bought in. I love connecting with people. You regulate yourself and then you regulate the team that way through our nervous system, our connection. We're built for it biologically. Mm-hmm. And so by regulating yourself, by choosing your story and what you're saying about yourself or to yourself, you are sending that message out in the world as well. You're regulating what other people think about you by what you think about yourself. And so I love, there's so much in your book. Start with how people get in trouble with what they think they have to do or what they think they should do. We're going to start somewhere early about the expectations that we think other people have for us.
Yeah, I think that we are, as humans, we have a really bad tendency to should all over ourselves, right? We are constantly saying, I should, in my case, I should go to the gym. I know you naturally go to the gym and it's part of your DNA. There's another place where we are very different. It's not my happy place. The blackjack table, happy place. The gym, not so happy.
See, there's another place we are, combined is that the blackjack table, also a happy place for me. I like that. But
we are gonna do that one day.
Absolutely.
I love it. Okay. I think that we are just living we live often on autopilot. We are living in a society where, many people who are working are, there are no bio breaks, there are no thinking breaks, there are no meal breaks, and everything there's so much access to so many things 24/7 that we're getting bombarded. And if we're not consciously taking a step off of the treadmill, if you will, then we are not, then we are just getting sucked into all the things that we think we should do, or who we should be, or how we should show up, or what, and so I really do believe we are unconsciously shitting all over ourselves all the time. And if we, and the result of that, in my experience, is that I call it like, inside I have like this part of me, it's almost like a combination of a taskmaster and an inner rebel, and the two of them do not match. Like, as a result of that, when those two things are at play, they're butting up against each other. And the result is that we are either beating ourselves up, we're judging ourselves, we're not getting things done that we really want to get done. And we also feel put upon by, all of the things in our external world as well. So that is, who should I be in my family? Who should I be at work? Who should I be in society? Who should I be, in my own business? It's like fill in the blank. And so all of that pressure that we might be putting on ourselves outside is at the same time eliminating our own moment to kind of come back to center and self-reflect and ask, what do I really want? What is seeking to come from me that is for me and for others? And what do I want to do? And what might I choose to do rather than live in the land of should?
Yeah. And so interesting, because you and I have a lot of the same lessons, right? My book, Everyday Great, we talk about a lot of the same things, and I think a lot of us do as we're trying to help people. But it has to come from different angles for different people to hear it and understand it. I think so many things that I have learned over the years were things that I knew, but had to be presented to me in a proper way. I come at it from that we are always training side. We're training our nervous system how to respond. And as kids, we are entirely dependent on our parents. And so since we're so dependent on our parents, we learn to give to other people's expectations. We need to conform to what they're doing, literally in order to survive at first, but then to maintain peace in the household, to get rewards. We're rewarded for listening to our parents. We're rewarded for the right behaviors. And so eventually, as our mind and our nervous system is always looking for the answer to the puzzle before we get the piece, right? We're always looking for that fit before it comes up, so that our predictive power is really our strength. But we're looking for the answer, so we're thinking, well, we should do this. That's our answer, right? That's what we're predicting. But it's not always what's great for us in that moment. And so you have to train yourself to stop thinking about what external values or what other things are put on you, other people's opinions oftentimes, or what you think other people's opinions will be, and start thinking about what you need for yourself, to feed yourself, to fuel yourself, which is great. And
I agree.
And it's not going to come, I'm not going to give away the whole book, but you have another story in there that I love too, about your own story, about telling your story. Like that is a huge piece. And so how do you go about formulating your story? Because I think this, right, gets back to what I was talking about at the top of the show, is that if I tell myself that I am on this side of the aisle and that anybody on that side of the aisle is wrong, then the story I'm telling myself creates barriers instead of creating connection. And so how do you go about, in that moment where I was being flippant, how did you go about saying, I'm not going to react to that based on my story per se, and I'm going to look for the deeper story? How did you get to that point, and how did people do that at home?
I love that question, and I love the way you just framed also the should and kind of the depth of the history and the childhood and the who we need to be for our parents and all this. I mean, that's brilliant, and I'm so excited to read your book. And so I have another tool that I use that I used in that moment with you. And so this is, let me explain the tool in this way. I think about it like we all have this proverbial dining room table within us, right? We all have like a table within us. And instead of it being filled and surrounded by family and friends, I like to think about all the different parts of ourselves that sit around this table. And so we all have some similar parts of us that sit around each of our own tables. So we all have happy and sad. We all have love and fear. We all have confidence and doubt, right? And then we fill in the blank with a million other parts of us. So based on that history, based on our childhood, based on our family dynamic, you might have been labeled as something in your family. Like I was like the perfect child, right? My sister was the difficult child. You might have been the black sheep. You might be the peacekeeper. You might be, and then there's other parts of us like the martyr or the pleaser. Or do you have one that comes up for you?
Yeah, I was a pleaser. I would say a fixer for sure.
A fixer.
Yeah, and it came from my childhood illness. You and I have talked about it, but for anybody who's listening for the first time, I grew up with cystic fibrosis and severe lung disease as a kid, and I used sports to overcome that. But I was always, when you go through something like that, you're always kind of looking for cues from parents, really looking for them to what's going on, because they're not going to tell you the truth about your illness. When a doctor tells your parent if he makes it through the night, he's going to be okay, they're not going to tell you that. But you know that something's dire. You can sense that. Neuroception is letting you feel that from them, but you're looking for those clues. And so, children of alcoholics and addicts and other bad behaviors kind of learn this trait too, where you're kind of always looking, you're on the watch, and it makes you a bit of a fixer, of a pleaser, because you're trying to do whatever keys into their nervous system to get that response back for you to make life better for you. And so that I was a fixer, I was a pleaser in that way.
Yeah, that's really intense, right? So I would say there's also, like, I think of you, there's a discipline in you, right? You're a disciplined person. So discipline is probably at your table. And for other people, you mentioned the word addict, right? There might be an addict at the table, and there might be control. But let's also, find the beautiful things, right? There's also curiosity, and there's also generosity, and there's also vulnerability. And so fill in the blank. There's a million different parts of us, and we could sit here all day and name them, right? But the question in any given moment is who's sitting at the head of the table. And that is the part of us that is making the choices in the moments that are creating our results. So what happened for me in that moment with you is I saw that text come in. We didn't ever talk about politics ever, ever, ever. I had an immediate inner reaction, right? Which is to act again versus a response, which is like the ability to respond. But before I reacted outside, I acknowledged kind of the part of me that had the moment of, I acknowledged my reaction before I did anything. And then I chose to, I took personal responsibility, which is the ability to respond. And when I did that, what I first did is I said, who is sitting at the head of my table, right? Who do I want to be as I respond? What is my intention? I want to be Mike's friend. I want to keep this relationship going. I want to know him better. I want to understand this point of view. I want to share my point of view. I want us to connect because it sounds like we might be very different in ways I did not know. And I don't want that to be the end of the relationship. I want it to be in some ways the new beginning of the relationship, right? Or at least the continuation of a new relationship. And so I very consciously chose love at the head of my table because I also know that you are very loving. And I know that about you, and I feel that with you. And I say that as, a friend and somebody who is like a new friend, and I feel it. And so there was never a part of me that jumped to the conclusion of, oh my God, I'm sensing a difference in us politically. And so now I need to figure out how to get out of this. I put love at the head of the table, and when we think about who's sitting at the head of the table, that is the authority that we're putting at the head of the table in that moment. And inside the word authority is, Mike, you know this?
Author. So I then chose to author the story that I wanted to create, that I wanted to perpetuate, versus buy into the story that I want nothing to do with. So if I would have had fear at the head of the table, or if I would have had righteous at the head of the table, or if I would have had disconnected at the head of the table, I would probably not be having this conversation with you now. And I unfortunately think that this is a lot of what's happening at our Thanksgiving tables and in our communities and in our world at this moment. And I just think that for me, the answer is always like,
lean in and get to know a human, right? It's like Brene Brown will say, it's hard to hate up close, right? And I think that so I would say in any given moment, the choice is yours to decide and choose who is sitting at the head of the table, and then to lead and to go with that. And by the way, there's no right or wrong. If there's no right or wrong, I'm not here to judge or do anything. I'm offering a tool that if you want to use to connect, great. You can just as easily use it to disconnect, and that is your choice. But that's not my personal desire. I want to connect.
Well, people at home, so you can go back and re-listen to that because it's brilliant, and you can see exactly why I love Steph. And here's the thing too, right? Everybody wants this. If you get into the brain chemistry of what's going on when you're on opposing sides and you have very strongly held beliefs, there was a study done at USC, I think he was a neuroscientist named Kaplan, ran a study, and he was asking liberal political believers certain things that were meant to trigger that emotional response. And the brain, when it fired up, literally fired up a defense mechanism from a brain structure called the insula. And the insula is also the part of your brain responsible for making the gag reflex. So when you smell bad milk and you start to gag, it comes from the insula. It triggers that response. If you smell something, rotted or decayed, you gag. It's to protect you. And so literally our strongly held beliefs, our identity beliefs, create a gag reflex type response immediately.
Wow.
And so what you did with your power about who's sitting at the table removed the reactivity by taking you out of that brain structure. I just think it's a fascinating, I love biology as an athlete. I was always trying to optimize my biology to play at my absolute peak. And you cannot, although they've tried for years, you cannot separate biology from psychology, from neurobiology. It's all in there together, and they all affect each other. And so I am fascinated by I reverse engineer everything, which is how I got to the book, which is why I'm giving these stories, because it puts together experiential as well as medical and clinical and all the studies that are out there too about how to optimize your body. But it's exactly what you're talking about and what you were able to do, which is powerful. Remove that reactive knee-jerk response of enemy, of gag reflex, and to say, I'm going to put myself in my forebrain, the part that really makes me quintessentially human. To think about this. And you created that connection between me and you. And I'm going to tell you right now, Steph and I are not going to vote the same way. But I love her. I think she is fantastic. We were able to sit down and literally discuss our differences. And that's where it needs to be. That's where we need to get to. We don't need to be in this ground where so many companies, so many people are battling for our attention. They're battling for our loyalty to their cause. And if you can do what Steph did, the brilliance of that, and I'm overwhelmed, and I am grateful, and I am just inspired by you, Steph, by the way that you handle that. So, and it wasn't a horrible comment that I made either, by the way. It wasn't like I made some I just flippantly threw something out there. But in political circles, that could be enough to start a fire. And Steph just went, no, I'm just going to pull this aside and find our consistencies. I'm going to find where we are similar instead of where we are apart. And I think that's fantastic. And thank you for that.
Blackjack is all we need.
Blackjack is all we need. I absolutely love it.
Let's just play blackjack. Can't we all just get along? Come on.
100%. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Can I say one thing about thank you for everything you just said. I love our love fest. Look at us having a love fest. It's so
exactly
good.
Right. Steph, you can say whatever you want at any time.
Thank you.
Feel free.
I think that, okay, so just like I kind of gave my power to Tony Robbins and all the people around thinking they were going to stop me from this deranged choice I was about to make, and that did not occur, I think that we get to take our power back. I actually think this is what is possible. There's a lot of people on all sides of all things who are trying to get our attention, right? They're doing their damnedest to keep us from this kind of connection. They don't want us to find the humanity in each other, right? And the more we lean in and actually remember that we're human beings who are, who have families and friends and communities and really we really all want the same thing. And it's like, and I just feel like the question is always like, where is my power center? Who am I really giving my power to? If I don't watch the news for a few days, I am like totally chill and happy. And I don't have any of that brain activity that you're talking about going on. I am loving my city and being in the sun and, and just like writing my content and coaching and loving my people and, and that is where the magic is for all of us. And I think that if I could, I just want to encourage people to be mindful of their choices and ask, like, what is a choice I can make today that would light me up? What is a choice that I can make today that would create some curiosity? Like, what is the choice I could make today that could add to the good rather than the negative that's occurring in this world? And I think that if we all kind of came together in that way, we could change all things.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and it doesn't take that much either. It's just connecting a little bit, and then we get so hidden in that spot that if we just realize that we can surrender, like we can give up our position, and it makes us so much more powerful.
Yeah,
your vulnerability is really your strength.
Agreed.
Because now you can connect with people, and that brings you to the next level. It's why I love team so much. When I played on my teams, I had my college roommate was from the inner city of Watts, right? I grew up as this suburban white kid from Orange County. Couldn't have been different backgrounds. I have one of my favorite human beings in the world grew up in the hood in Secaucus, New Jersey. And I would take a bullet for this man in a heartbeat. I just absolutely love this guy. And most of my teammates I feel the same way about, right? My roommate, when I was playing pro, grew up on a farm in a town from 86 people in southwestern PA. Like, they're just, the diversity is a strength for us if you allow your vulnerability to lead with each other. Because if we don't set boundaries where they're different and we allow people inside our bubble who have shared purpose, because that's key. You can't have people who are looking to exploit you, but people who have a shared purpose strengthen us in the biggest ways. And so
agreed.
It's the power of team.
And we don't have to agree on everything in order to have a shared purpose. I mean, I think that's the other part. It's like, I feel like, I support your purpose, you support my purpose, and we can still think and believe different things. I mean, I just think that that's the beauty. And I do like the idea of there being kind of like, what is one choice I can make today that connects me to someone that I wouldn't normally be connected to, to smile at someone that I wouldn't normally look at in the eye. Like, there's this great, there was this, I always think about this. There was this great thing that happened. I don't remember. I think it was during, it might have been during like the George Floyd thing, and I can't remember. But was that before COVID or after? Now I don't even know. During, before?
That's a great question.
Something happened. There's this video, and it's probably on YouTube. But there's this amazing moment where there's a big crowd, and in the center of the crowd there is I'm going to say white neo-Nazi, white supremacist guy, bald skinhead kind of guy. And then there's this black guy, but then there's like a million people around. And there's a video of like the white guy is like yelling or whatever he's doing. And the black guy finally, he hugs the white guy. He hugs the skinhead. And you can hear him saying, "Why do you hate me, dog? Why do you hate me, dog?" And the guy is just hugging him. He's just hugging him. And eventually the skinhead hugs him back. And every time I think of that, I get chills because I go, I think hate, hate is the other side of hate is love, right? And I don't think anybody knows why they're so separate or against or in conflict with most of the time. And this is what I mean about like, to whom or to what have we given our power, and where is our center of love and light and gravity? And can we get back to that and just like, what would it be like to just everybody needs a hug? You know,
Everybody
that white
needs a
guy,
hug. That's the
that
truth.
white, that white guy really needed a hug. He's carrying around a lot of hate. And the guy that he was yelling at and hating on was loving him up. And I just think that's a beautiful visual and a beautiful lesson and a beautiful opportunity for all of us, symbolically or literally, to give each other a hug.
Yeah, 100%. It's a powerful lesson out there. You know, giving in that surrender. I have a chapter in my book on that, in terms of the power of connection with people, because it's just life changing. It's your weakness is your strength, because your vulnerability, what feels very weak, is actually your ability to connect, which then gives you purpose. We'll talk a little bit more about purpose in a second. For everybody at home, if you are looking to hear more about my book, Everyday Great, or I'm giving away a checklist, pre-game checklist, to learn how to regulate those emotions when they hit and you feel that emotion come up. Pre-game, as a player in the tunnel, you feel a lot of fear, you feel a lot of angst, you feel that stress response coming on. You have to be able to regulate it. So you text GREAT to 55444. You can get that checklist, how pro athletes handle that stress response and how they bring themselves back to a state, to use Steph's word, a state where they can play in the game. And so you can get that right now if you text me at 55444, text GREAT. I'd love to hear from you. And remember, share this out. You can hear how brilliant Steph is. She needs to be shared with the world. It's fantastic. So
wait, I'm texting right now. 55444.
Yeah, it's GREAT to 55444.
Okay, I'm doing it. GREAT.
I love it.
Done.
Yes, I love it. And so, but you can hear this, right? People at home need to hear this. People at home need to meet Steph, because her story, her power is in that connection. And I know Steph's heart. I know it personally. She loves helping people. I am obsessed with helping people right now. I know Steph loves helping people. That's what fulfills her. That's what gives her that strength. And so just being able to listen to somebody is key. Talk to me now, because here's what we're doing. We're participating. We are actively involved in doing this, right? You have a chapter in your book which is quintessential to me as an athlete. You learn this early on. Your chapter is Be, Do, Have.
Yes.
Right? Everybody wants the reward before they ever lace up their shoes to do the work. So talk to me about that chapter and what people need, the way people need to order their thinking.
Yeah, I love it. When you said we are participating, it reminded me of if you know who Michael Beckwith is. I heard him say once many years ago. He said, "You want to be a participant, not an anticipant, right? You don't want to be. It's not just about anticipating; it's about participating." So I love that you use that word. So be, do, have. So I think the truth is that we often think that we are creating from what I call the have, do, be mindset, right? Well, if I have this, or when I have this, then I can be this. When I have the money, then I can be happy. When I have the relationship, then I will feel loved. When I have fill in the blank, then I will be fill in the blank. And the truth is that how we create and how we, manifest, or whatever word you want to use, is first by being. And that is, we do it unconsciously. So it might sound woo-woo, but the truth is this is happening all the time, right? I could have unconsciously been disconnected, and then I would have had a fight with you. Right?
Right. Yeah, 100%.
But instead, I tapped into who am I being, and then that created our deeper friendship, and you too, you participated in that too. So you invite, who were you being when you got my text is kind of the question, Yeah.
So to answer that question, I was coming from my side, the same thing. I was pissed, which is why I said what I said. But when I got your text, I stepped back and said, this is not ill-intended. This is not at me. This is with me.
Yeah.
Right? This is on my team. And so I was trying to be a teammate when you said that to me.
That's amazing. Great. So teammate, connection, amazing. So if you're thinking about, like, what is it that you want to create? Do you want to create, wealth? Do you want a new job? Do you want to be a better teammate? Do you like what's another example of what people might want?
Happy family, right?
Happy
Great
family.
relationships.
Good relationships, right? Do you want to be in a relationship? Do you want to be out of a relationship? Whatever it is, right? The other famous one is, I want to, if I lost 10 pounds, then I'll be satisfied or happy.
I was going to say 6-pack abs. That's another one, right?
That's another one. When I have 6-pack abs, then I'll go on a dating app and start to meet somebody, whatever it is, right? So it's like, but the truth is, whatever it is that you want and whatever you think it will bring you from a core value place, that is the indicator about what you get to put at the head of the table. That will be the authority and the author that will create that thing in your life. So it's not when I have the job, then I'll be successful. You get to be successful. You get to be the embodiment of successful. You get to write the narrative about what that feels like and what that looks like and what you want. And then you open up to and take action from that place of being, and that creates your results. And in terms of like the book, what I say is, the more intention you bring to the choices you make, in this case about who are you being, the more agency power you have over the results that you create. So that's kind of the marriage of the two.
And it was great. And I watched this in action. Steph and I were speaking at a workshop together, and we were trying to work through a project through books with people. And before we started, Steph said, hold on, can we sit for a second and just set a clear intention of what we want to do here? And I was like, oh, that is so, like, it's so magical, because people miss that step so often. I always think, and the way I talk about it is, obviously my world started in sports. And so I revolve around sports, and I think, well, what kind of player do you want to be? Who do you want to be? You know, if you're a quarterback, do you want to be Tom Brady? Well, that's great that you want that. That's a great aspiration. But you have to do the things that Tom Brady did to get where he is. And you can't expect yourself to be Tom Brady if you haven't taken the snaps to be a good high school quarterback. And if you haven't taken the snaps to, taken the reps, done the work, and done all that. So you put that idea of who I want to be, and to use your vernacular, at the head of the table. If I want to be Tom Brady, then I have to act like he would have acted in my situation right now.
That's right.
Be that person and do the things that he had to do to get eventually to have what I want. And so you never get there without it. That's one of the huge premises of my book, is that you are always training. You are constantly training. And whether you are training to be better or you are training to be worse is based on, again, to stay in your verbiage, who's at the head of your table. And who's in charge, and intentionality of your training.
Yes. And the choices that you're making as a result. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. You know what? Thanks for bringing up that memory of the intention. It's so true. I think that we are going 1,000,000 miles a minute. Again, it's what I said at the beginning. We have 1,000 things coming at us 24/7. If we are not stopping and resetting and putting our feet on the ground and taking a breath and saying, okay, in this moment, what is my intention? Who do I want to be? What do I want to create? How do I want to show up in the world? How am I participating? Right? Because these unconscious choices and this lack of choosing who is sitting at the head of the table, in my humble opinion, is what is causing division, is what is causing wars, is what is causing all the things that are keeping us so separate. It's not our nature to be separate. Like, that is not who we are. We are interdependent beings.
Yeah, and it is not our biology to be separate.
Right. And think about what we're missing out. I would be missing out if you were not my friend. That would be a disconnect, a disservice in the world if you were not my friend. Right. So I feel like
I feel exactly the same way. Of course.
And if we can think about, like, what can we win and gain by making choices that are more conscious? Like, again, the powers that be have us lingering in fear and separateness and otherness. And that is just that's not ultimately for our highest and best. And I don't think that that's really what it's funny. Again, I'm Jewish. I'm not, I'm not a Jesus person, but I like Jesus. And I think that, I think that Jesus is in some way going like, that's not, no, we got to be together, right?
Right.
Yeah, like this is not, like, no step or no more.
That's
like
not what I was teaching.
No, right? Like let's get back to basics and just like support each other to win.
Yeah, fascinating. And I don't know if you've read much of Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
About and so he's big on the power of now, but he quotes religion all the time. And I've seen this when I was a kid, when I was young. You know me, I was always a searcher, right? I was always trying to reverse engineer and find things. And so I went on this deal while I was getting cut and going from league to league and playing in different places where I was living by myself, where I literally went on this journey through religious texts and cultures and everything else to try to figure out where the commonality was between all of them. And the commonality that I found in every single one of them, from the Quran to Native American teachings to Christianity to Judaism to all of it, was that the lessons are meant to help us regulate our nervous system. They're literally meant to solve a lot of the so human issues that we all face: fear, anxiety, the unknown, connection. All of these lessons in every book and in every religion gave us some surety and gave us a way to get through our stress response and a way to make hopeful predictions about our future that we could then use to modulate our nervous system, to optimize ourselves. And it changes your physiology. And so it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing when you find those things, how powerful that they are. And so anytime you listen at home, if you're like me and you listen now, listen with that ear. What is this story telling me, and how is it modulating my nervous system? How is it affecting the way my body responds to the world? Because that's what those stories are about.
That reminds me of, I'll have to tap into your wisdom for my next book.
Absolutely. I'm happy to give it. Anything I can do to help you, I will do it. And you know that in a heartbeat. I absolutely love what you're doing. And I'm going to finish with this thought here, in that when I said something, it was triggering, right? That's the way we're programmed right now.
Yeah.
And you have a chapter in here about what happens when you get triggered and what that does for you.
Yes.
And so I would like you to talk about that. It's oftentimes that's your lesson, right? The trigger is your teacher is the chapter I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But that's where our lesson lies. Why am I getting freaked out over this? What is it about this that is freaking me out? And you say it so well. Talk about it if you don't mind.
I love it. I think that this is the greatest opportunity for growth, and are also in some way, people don't love the word responsibility, personal responsibility. There is a lot that comes with that, right? There was a moment I really wanted to call my book "The Choice Is Yours," making responsibility great, making personal responsibility great again.
Yes. Nice.
But my publisher was like, no. But I do think, but the truth is, I said this earlier too, that the word responsibility is just the ability to respond. So when we are triggered, the opportunity is to be, is to really acknowledge it as we're not going to be triggered whether something amazing happens or whether something terrible happens, if it doesn't live within us somewhere, right? So if someone pisses you off, I'm not going to say like immediately go to the teacher element of it, like, oh, this is teaching me something, because I think that that's a little Pollyanna, and I don't think it's really realistic. I think that we are human beings and we're going to have reactions to things. I think that the opportunity and the choice is to really say, okay, this pissed me off. I'm having a feeling. I'm having a reaction. And in a perfect world, you are giving yourself the space to have a productive expression of that upset, anger, outrage, whatever it is that's coming up for you. I'm obviously talking about like the trigger that is negative, or the thing that is really getting you riled up or causing you fight or flight, or you name it, right? And when you are through that, as best you can be through it, and there is that spaciousness, ideally, that you've created as a result of getting through it, then the opportunity is to say, what is this here to teach me, right? This is not for nothing. There is something here that is really for me. If there is something that's coming through me, there is an opportunity for me to grow. There is an opportunity for me to learn something or take a new path or create a new level of a relationship with myself or others. There's always a lesson and an opportunity, whether we're triggered in the worst way possible or the best way possible, right? Like, we could be triggered in a loving way. Like, you're being so loving with me and telling me how much I mean to you and all the things. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to receive that. And if you spot it, you got it, So to you, I say, all that you see in me, own it for yourself too. And let that light you up and guide you as well. Right. And similarly, like, if someone is pissing you off, or if there's something political that you're really triggered around, I would really love to challenge you, everybody, all of us. What is the trigger? What is it? What's really triggering you? Is it an injustice? Is it what's the deeper trigger? And if you're really triggered, then what ultimately is the teacher? What's the opportunity? Do you want to go into criminal justice law? Do you want to serve and volunteer with people who are who are in need? Like, what is the immigration thing bugging you? What is seeking to emerge from you? Because we all have a spark, a light, a purpose. And if we are not using it for good, it is a lost ripple in the world. And that is a disservice to all of us.
Without a doubt. People, you can see why Steph is so brilliant. Go back and listen to that part again, because it's so important that we understand that, because these triggers are what set us off, and they're what set us apart. And they're exactly, because not just religion, but also politics is set to modulate your nervous system. They're set to create that fear response. They're set to create the identity that keeps you separate and apart and loyal. We have all these shows out where you see the bad, evil rulers always telling people, bend the knee, take the knee, like to bow and be subservient and show your fealty. Well, that's what politicians, not in that way, right? But that's what they're trying to get from you, because that loyalty, that identity then sets you apart and makes you a voting block. And that voting block has power. And so I learned, I did a bunch of documentaries on water policy in California. I did a documentary on water policy, but several other on a copper mine and other things. And then what I found about politics is the lesson at the surface is never the actual lesson. It's not what you're seeing or hearing. It's like a millimeter deeper. It's not super deep. It's just underneath that. But there's something else underneath that. And so, Steph, where can people work with you? Because clearly, your ability to cut through this stuff and your ability to change lives is powerful, and I love it. And you've made me better just here today. But every time we talk, you make me better. And so people have to get access to that. How can they do it?
Well, the easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn at Stef Ziev, just STEF ZIEV, and that's also my website is stefziev.com. And I have a lot of fun giveaways on the website as well. But I also offer a complimentary 30-minute session. I would love to hear from you and your audience and anyone, and be in support of what your spark and light and thing is that you are here to give. And if you've been separating yourself from providing that to yourself or others, and you've been choosing less than or lack versus the abundance and value you bring, then I would like to support you to bring that back out.
I absolutely love that. And you can hear Steph and I are so different, but she found a way to cut through that and create this connection between us that's super powerful. And her ability to work with anybody is so powerful. And so if you want to work with Steph, I strongly recommend hit the website, find her on LinkedIn, find a way to get a hold of her, because she will change your life. She'll make you better. That's what she does for people. And it's super powerful. Steph, thank you for helping this to happen. Thank you for being here to make this and being my friend, because I really appreciate it. I do feel that I am a better human being because of you. And I feel that I have a better understanding now, and I'm more accepting of the other side as well. And again, it wasn't a horrible comment. It was just a flippant comment. I wasn't thinking about things. It was just a reaction. But you were the adult in the room who said, nah, let's talk about this. And we did. And we talked about our differences. And you know what? I love you even more for it.
And I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so happy that you are doing this podcast and have this platform and your book. And I'm so excited to get my checklist from you. And I love what you're up to, and I'm here for all of it. And let us be the poster children for connection versus disconnection, and choosing
100%.
that.
Yes, yeah. I couldn't say any better than that. Teamwork is awesome. It's a great way to regulate your nervous system. Self-regulation.
Happy birthday to you! I'm so grateful you were born. We are better for it. Thanks, my friend.
Doing this on my birthday here, so that's how much I love Steph. You can see that. Fantastic message. Self-regulate regulates everybody around you, and that makes you more powerful. I couldn't have said it better myself. Steph, you are awesome. I love having you. People at home, get a hold of Steph. Again, you can always text GREAT to 55444. Don't forget, if you want that checklist, how professional athletes get ready for a game, how they regulate and modulate their nervous system to play at top, to perform at their peak, you can get that there. But I appreciate you guys watching. It's great lessons in here today. Please share this out. People need to hear this, especially in these times that we're living in. Connection is our superpower as human beings. Let's use it for good. But use that to make yourself better, make everybody else better, and create your everyday great.